So when Elon Musk invents that time machine, and I just so luckily get to be one of the first 10 people to get on it, these are the top 10 things that I would tell my younger self before starting a business venture. On this episode of BootstrapMD. This episode is sponsored by BootstrapMD. What is BootstrapMD? It's the premier entrepreneurial event for physicians coming up in Atlanta this October. If you've ever wanted to start your own online business, or maybe you have a business right now and it's not going to where you want it to go, I invite you to attend. At BootstrapMD, you'll meet like-minded entrepreneurs who are in the same boat as you, and you're going to meet experts who have already been there, done that, and had successful internet businesses. Whether you're someone who wants to start your own course, you want to build extra streams of income, I invite you to come in to BootstrapMD. Go to bootstrapmd.com/Atlanta and register today. Hey guys, Dr. Mike Wu-Ming here. Welcome to another episode of BootstrapMD. Hope you're having a cool summer, maybe not. So, before I started this podcast, I was actually on another podcast with a business partner of mine, and it ran for about a year. And when I was cleaning up my drop boxes and looking at some old audio, I came across an episode that was actually one of our more popular episodes that we did. And it was an episode where we asked the question, if you could go back in time, what would be the top 5 or 10 things you would say to your younger self before involved in your entrepreneurial journey? And as I was looking at those 10 things, I really didn't change any of those things. So what I thought would be kind of cool is to kind of go over these 10 things, and I thought I would share it with you. So without further ado, let's get started. Number 10, invest in things you understand or you know. Invest in things that you understand or you know. And I know this one all too well. And you may be guilty of this as well. So a couple of businesses, I've been involved in a lot of different ventures. I've been involved in, really successful multi-million-dollar launches to those that are not as successful. And looking back at the types of businesses that really kind of tanked, one of the reasons, it may not be the only reason, was I got involved in businesses that I didn't understand. So on an upcoming episode, I have an interview with the Passive Income MD, and he talks a lot about real estate. If you notice on that podcast, I don't really say too much about my own real estate experience. And that's because I only like to talk about things that are helpful to you, unless you want to hear the failures. So several years ago, I got involved. It was with a friend who was a real estate entrepreneur and involved in buying some houses in the Midwest. This was an area in Missouri that supposedly this factory was going to come in and it was going to revitalize the area, and unfortunately that factory never came through. And I ended up losing a little bit of money on it, so to speak. Luckily, I was able to sell those houses. I still have one house just for, sentimental reasons, but no, some tax reasons. But it was because I didn't involve in it, and I put some money and I thought I would do well, and I didn't do my due diligence. Another one that was where I was involved in a business was, so currently I have a clinic with a medical spa. But several years ago, I actually invested into becoming a medical director of a medical spa that I helped create in Belize. Now, here's the thing. I've never been to Belize. I still haven't gone to Belize. I hear it's a wonderful country. And it was an island that apparently is well known for diving, and we were going to build a medical spa. I bought a hyperbaric chamber for diving purposes, and it was one of those things where I trusted somebody, and he made promises that, let's just say, he couldn't keep. And where it was actually done, the island, it wasn't even well developed. It wasn't fully developed. And there was some lawsuits that were involved and everything like that. Suffice it to say, the medical spa never opened. And it was, again, one of those things where I didn't directly go there. I was doing everything from the West Coast in the States. Nothing had really happened. And it was lesson learned. And I think it was because of these failures that helped me to repel me to learn from my failures that got me one step closer to success. Number 9, write your own checks. I'm not sure where I read it from. Maybe it was a multi-millionaire, billionaire biography I was reading. But what really struck me was, even though this guy was really successful, he had a lot of different enterprises and businesses, for the big checks, he was actually writing the checks himself. And what I mean for here is that you have to specifically write each check. I'm a big fan of debiting and all that kind of stuff. But for the bigger purchases, I want to be aware of what are the big purchases, especially if there are new vendors that I'm not familiar with, or we're purchasing something and I'm not seeing the ROI of it. I mean, there's been many a time where I'm actually looking at my monthly, what's going in and what's going out. I'm going, why are we still with this vendor? What have they actually brought about? And I take the time to do what I call monthlies, business monthlies, and just kind of look at all of our different services. And if I'm still using it and it's still making money for our business, then I'll keep going at it. But if it's not worth it, and the thing is, even those like smaller services that you may have, you don't realize those all add up. So whether it be you're writing a check or you have an assistant writing your own checks for you, just be aware of what's going on with your finances. Number 8, go with your gut, or in parentheses, trust but verify. We all run into a lot of different folks who want to sell us a lot of stuff. I'm not telling you anything that's new, but even sometimes with our colleagues, we think they have the best intentions, but they may not have the best intentions for you. Maybe it's for the best intentions for yourself. I've gotten involved into some businesses. I later found out that those people were not trustworthy, and it's kind of lesson learned. And there's always something, there's always something where you're like in the pit of your stomach, you're saying, I'm not sure this is the right for me. I mean, this guy seems cool or gal seems great, and then you realize that this isn't the direction that you want to go. Or even they might have the best intentions, everything might be ethical, and it's just not time for you to go into that direction with what you're currently doing. It doesn't match what your direction that you want for your business. It may take time away from what you're doing. So those are the kinds of things that I'm talking about. Every time I've been involved in a business venture that tended to go south, I always had that feeling in the stomach, and sometimes I listened to it and other times I didn't. So, and the other thing too is I try to take people at their word when first meeting, but I also verify, whether through background checks, whether it be talking with people who they've worked with before. You should always do that. Remember, they don't always have your best intention in mind, no matter how much they smile or how much they seem cool on the interweb. Number 7, work on your health as much as your business. So, we're doctors, of course, health is a priority. When I actually left medicine for a bit, had a very successful software company, and we were really doing well. Unfortunately, my health took a tumble there. I gained a lot of weight. I mean, weight's always been something I struggle with, but it was the heaviest I've ever been. I was more sedentary, and when you have a business, you're gonna have stress. You're not gonna have sleep. You're not gonna be eating well. Those all add up, and you gotta treat your health like you do your business. And it's one of those things that I learned the hard way, and I continue to learn. Especially as we're in an industry where, of course, health is priority. But it's always a good reminder too. If you can treat your, in our business, we know what's coming in and what's coming out. We don't do the same thing with our own bodies. So whether it be, exercise, meditation, whatever you need to do to get you to be in tip-top shape, and it's so important for you, of course. Number 6, when things are going great is when you need to work even harder. As I mentioned, I've had some really successful launches, 7-figure businesses and such. And I remember, and probably it was related to my last tip that I gave you, is we had a really successful launch, and that's what you need to do. The next 6 months to a year, I really took it easy. Like I said, I gained weight, I played a lot of video games, I was traveling, but yeah, we were doing the day-to-day stuff. But looking back at some of the things, it led to some things that came aboard that really kind of, you know, impacted our business. We had new competitors. There were some cracks in our own team that I wish I would have known about. And I was really, you know, to be honest, apathetic because of everything that was going on and everything was going well. And that's the time when you need to be looking at, hey, we may be on top right now, but we need to have a unfair advantage over everybody else. We need to be aware that our competitors are going to come into the space. We need to be aware that there might be some new avenues that we may wish to pursue, and then other avenues we don't want to go into. And that's what happened with us. We got into some areas that really wasn't our bread and butter kind of stuff, and it really kind of fragmented it. And seeing, looking back, I wish I could have been more vigilant as I was. So even when they're great, even when things are going in, the money is coming in, you should always be aware. And if you want to continue to grow, that's the position that you need to be in. Number 5, when hiring, make sure your employee is great at least one thing. As I mentioned, I've worked with a lot of people, I've had many employees, and compared to some of my other colleagues and other doctors I work with, I think I'm doing pretty good. You know, I've had employees who've been with me for nearly or over a decade, and they still put up with me. And we don't have a lot of turnover in some of the businesses that we do. And I think one aspect that really worked well for me, you know, I'm not saying I'm the best boss of all time or anything like that, of course not, but I tend to find people who are good, if they got a skill set, I find them good at like one thing, and I let them really take it to town with them. That I really want them to, let's say they're really good, like for example, my manager, she's really good at billing and making sure everything, all the numbers are correct. I remember one time she was going over the numbers and she was counting like our petty cash and she was saying, you know, we're $50 over. And I go, oh, cool. And she says, no, that's horrible. We should not be $50 over. I need to look back at everything I get. So that's a great example of someone who is really good at that particular skill. What I see is, just like as in any type, you know, you want to find the specialists in your area. And if you find what that specialty is, whether it be the great at customer support, or maybe they are great technically, they're great at helping you with your own medical procedures, or maybe they're great on the phone, or they have an artistic eye, maybe they help you with your designs in your office or in your website. Whatever that is, try to identify that skill and really nurture it and really let them explore it, because they're going to be more excited at their job. They're going to be more likely to work harder for you because it is something that they enjoy. The employees where I don't have is I can identify a skill that they were interested in, or it wasn't a skill that would benefit our business. So identify it, nurture it, and you're going to have really cool A+ employees. Okay, we're at the final 4 here. And on this one, I actually changed it. Before, I used to say, sometimes you need to say no. Well, I've changed it. Most of the time, you should say no, or the default answer should be to say no. And what I mean about saying no is if you've got your business and you know you got your direction and you've got your goals and you know what you need to do, you're hyper-focused, you're going to get some people to say, hey, can you help me with this, or can you help me with that, or would you like to be on this board, or would you like to help help my website here? If it doesn't fit that kind of prime directive, to give a Star Trek term, it's okay to say no. And it always kills me because I love to help people. I think as doctors, we want to help people. We want to be pleasing people. But again, it just may not be the time or the place to help them at that time. And you may not be a place. If you know your direction, where you need to go, going off on a side tangent could really derail your business. Again, we only have 24 hours a day, 7 days out of the week. What is your focus? Now, if it has to be something that you're not sure where your goals are and you're still looking for new opportunities and you're in that position, then yeah, go for it. But if you know what you want to do, you've got a direction, you've got your milestones and goals that you want to make, you got to be able to say no. Number 3, use screen capture video to teach everything. I do not know what I would do without screen capture video. So what am I talking about here? Things like Loom, Loom, or Camtasia, or ScreenFlow. So these are basically where I am using my laptop, since a lot of my business is online, and I'm helping to teach a student, or I'm teaching a freelancer or an employee something, a part of my business. And it's very difficult to just like get on the phone and describe what you're doing. I mean, have you ever had to tell like your mom how to like use the phone? Again, I'm not trying to age discriminate, but my dad does not know how to use mom, dad don't know how to use a smartphone at all. But it can be very, very frustrating. So some of the things that we do, for example, Click, we use like our ClickFunnels software or Builderall software to help create websites. And there are some intricacies that I need to know, that it's much easier if I say, hey, just watch this video, and it's a video of me logging into my account. You want to take point A to point B, you want to download this, you want to upload this into our mailing software, and this is what you need to do to blast out an email. It's a lot easier, but just having them follow the screen, and they can watch it and rewatch it all together again. It saves so much time when you're working with, let's say you're doing a project on Upwork, or again, you're working with a freelancer, or you're working with your own employee, or you're working with your students or your clients. Definitely take advantage of ScreenFlow software. And now we're at number 2. And number 2 is have weekly meetings with your staff. So when I was in primary care, one of the last employed jobs I had is I worked at the Indian Health Service. And one of the things I had learned was they would have what they called morning huddles. Now this was I was working as a primary care doctor, and I would have my nurse and my medical assistant, and all three of us in that morning for just about 5 minutes, we would go over we would look at our patients, the patient list that we had today, and then we want to anticipate what they could be asking or what they would need to have, or what are some of the calls that we may be getting that day. And it just led us to be more strategic, led us to be more prepared, and we would have less random stuff happen to us. And anytime that I've had a business where it isn't as great as it would want to be, where a lot of the cracks happen is miscommunication. And that's because we didn't know where everybody was on board. There would be people who they didn't know exactly where we're going, what our goals were, what were the new services or products we were offering, and that was on us as their boss, as their the ones who were running the ship here, and that's when things really fall apart. So I think it's important if you can do it physically, that's awesome, but I always at least try to have, if not a weekly, every couple of weeks have a meeting. I know there's books out there that say meetings are useless. I don't believe that for a second. I know with online businesses, you might have a joint venture partner that's on the other side of the country, or you're working with freelancers, maybe even out of the country. It's important that for your team, your business, whatever, you all need to get together. And if there's any questions, you need to make sure that those are answered. One important thing that I do ask is to every employee at some point is there anything we could do to make it better? What are you seeing? Because I'm not there all the time. I'm not there 24 hours. I don't know. If there are parts of your business that you don't know about, you need to ask, because your employees, you hired them. Hopefully they like you and they like working with you, and they want to make sure that they're involved in something that's going to grow and become successful as well. No matter, sometimes we may not think about it. So always try to have some type of meeting. Again, if it can't be physical, use Skype, use Zoom, use whatever webcam software you're using. Make sure you do that on a regular basis. And then we come down to number 1. The number 1 thing out of the top 10 things, if I could go back in a time machine, what I would ask myself before starting my business ventures is, I would ask myself this question: what are you doing all of this for? So when I was involved, I left medicine back in 2003, 2004. I started a business. The business became really successful. And one of the areas that was involved in my business, and I did a lot of traveling. I traveled selling the software to Australia and Europe, and more time away, from my family. And I still remember this kind of like passive aggressive, maybe not passive aggressive, maybe just aggressive. She said, I thought you wanted to leave medicine so you could spend more time with your family. And now you're traveling, every week or every other week. And it really got me thinking. She was 100% right. Why am I doing this? Even if I was like at home, I would hold myself up in my office or in my home office, and I was away from my family and kids. So even though, of course, we're doing well, there was some resentment. And then, so when you ask yourself that question, what are you doing all of this for? I still have to make sure that I'm saying that to myself. So there was one phrase that my son taught me at the time he was a teenager. He said, "Dad, sometimes you have to remember you need to enjoy the burrito." Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds really strange and weird, but what was interesting, what the story is we were listening to a podcast at the time, and it was called The Nerdist. It's kind of about like pop culture and geek stuff. And Chris Hardwick, the host, would say, he would end his call with "enjoy the burrito." And what that refers to is he had a friend who was a struggling actor at the time, and he would go through all these long hours, go through auditions. Sometimes things would work, sometimes it wouldn't. And like his one benefit was he had this favorite taco shop, this one favorite burrito, and then that was kind of the highlight of his day. And his friend would say, he says, "Why you look sad?" He says, "Well, I already have gone through half the burrito, and I'm feeling sad because it's about to end. It's the biggest part of my day." And his friend said to him, "Sometimes you need to enjoy the burrito." And so what that means is sometimes you have to live in the present, right? You can't cry about the past. You can't get anxious about the future. It's all about having gratitude. It's all about you're breathing in oxygen. Most likely you have a place to live. You got food on the table. You have hopefully friends and family that's around you, and hopefully are supporting you. I know everything isn't always, roses, of course. There's always things going on, right? We're only human. But sometimes you have to sit back and enjoy where you're at. Enjoy that, if you're a doctor, you have gone through that training. You have most likely are going to have a good paying job now until the future. And even though sometimes you can be burnt out, and sometimes it can be really distracting, and sometimes you want to strangle some people. sometimes you have to realize hey, I'm in a pretty cool place right now. I'm in a country of a lot of opportunity. I have technology that we couldn't even dream about, even for a few years ago, what we're able to do. I'm able to communicate with you. You may be in this country, you may be outside the country. Who knows? You wouldn't even imagine that there would be technology like this, at least when I was growing up as a kid. So sometimes you need to enjoy the burrito, so to speak. So I hope you took advantage. I hope you learned something from this. These are my top 10 things of what I would ask myself. What are some things you would ask yourself if you could go back? Feel free to put it in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to BootstrapMD. Each week we come out with something that can help physician entrepreneurs. Each week I help to bring you, the physician entrepreneur, one step closer to success. And as always, guys, whatever you do, never look back, keep moving forward.